Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Sarah Everett and I'm the co-founder and managing director of MediStays. I'm delighted to introduce you to Noel Henderson. Noel is sitting next to me here and is one of our specialist care navigators. And if you've joined for one of our previous webinars, you will know Noel. And also joining us today, I'm delighted to introduce you to Alicia Whirl. Alicia is a care navigator at MediStays and specialises in MTA and hospital discharge. So if you have referred a participant to MediStays, you may have already met Alicia, and it will be nice to put a face to the name. The title of today's webinar is Successful MTA to SDA Transitions. And today we're discussing building a multidisciplinary team for better outcomes for our NDIS participants. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands that we gather on today. We're joining you from the lands of the Wurundjeri and Woiwurrung people. We pay our respects to elders past and present and to any First Nations people joining our call today. If you've joined us previously, in November, we had our first MTA webinar where we discussed the fundamentals of MTA, what this important line item is and how it is funded. We represented again in March to delve into some case studies of MTA and SDA transitions and also home modifications using some case studies of participants that we have supported. And we're in a very privileged role to work with many excellent multidisciplinary teams of hospital and community workers across the country. And so what we've been doing is really taking note of how high-performing and successful multidisciplinary teams are working. And we thought and hope that that will provide you today with some tips on how you can get the most out of your workflows and outcomes for your participants when supporting them out of hospital with MTA and SDA. Today we'll be looking at an overview of the hospital to MTA and SDA pathway within the context of multidisciplinary teams. Thank you to everyone who has submitted some questions on your registration form for the webinar. If you have any questions during the webinar, please add those to the chat and we'll either address those during the session or afterwards if we haven't covered them off. The learning objectives for today are building an MDT for optimal participant outcomes and looking at the case study of the MDT involvement for the transition from MTA to SDA and also some practical transitions for who might be involved within that team. So I'll start with you, Alicia. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Sarah.
Just to run through what an MDT is.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you can see it here. When we're referring to a multidisciplinary team, an MDT, we refer to a group of professionals from different disciplines who work together to plan and deliver comprehensive care or support to a person. I guess what it comes down to, MDTs are bringing different professionals together to provide a more holistic and coordinated care. With the goal to work as one team with shared understanding of a person's needs, their goals, but also their preferences. Everyone brings in their own expertise, whether that's from the medical field, from allied health, social work, or disability support. We all work together to create a plan that actually fits the individual. And at the centre of it all stands the individual and often also their families or carers. They're central to that decision-making process. If MDT doesn't really ring a bell, you might hear these meetings also often referred to as a care plan meeting. They're basically the same thing. It's all about joined-up care.
Great, thanks, Alicia. That really sets the scene for what we'll be talking about today. And as Alicia mentioned, at the heart of every team is the participant. This is central to who we're supporting. Where possible, the participant will be supported by family and informal supports who are helping to make the best decisions for the participant that are aligned not only with their disability needs, but also their personal goals, their culture, and any values that are helping to guide us as a team on their preferred outcome for their living and their care in the community setting. The team of professionals involved in the care will be larger and more diverse than what we've listed here. As many of you will know, sitting behind a team in the hospital and the community, there are many people. So I'll hand over to Noel just to explain some of the core roles that we have identified here, because they tend to be the representatives of the broader teams that we're liaising with.
Absolutely, Sarah, that's right. And if you can see from the slide in front of us, there are so many people involved. If we look to the top, we'll see that that is the team that are part of the hospital system. So you have a social worker, you have the various allied health professionals and sitting, and of course there would be someone who would be a discharge planner. So someone who's going to be liaising with the NDIS as well as the family members and the medical teams to ensure the best outcome for the participant. At this point, you will also have a support coordinator who may or may not have been appointed, but most definitely the discharge planner will liaise with the LAC and also a planner from the NDIS. Of course, also then we have our Medic Stays accommodation team, and Alicia will talk more to their role shortly. And as Sarah has already mentioned, at the centre of this is the participant. And from there also, of course, their family and their informal support. So a large number of people working to bring all of this together.
Great, thanks, Noel. What we've done is to work through several of the key time points for a participant on their journey from hospital to MTA and SDA. And these are 4 broad areas that somebody would travel through with the team to reach that successful outcome. So having the right team at the right time and using the right members of that team at each of these touch points is very important. The first one that we'll touch on and work through is this first high-level approval for NDIS funded discharge. And this is one of the first steps in the process for the hospital team. Once they identify that a patient may be eligible for NDIS funding, that if they're going to MTA, they're not able to return home or to their previous living arrangement. So these would be parts of this very early access and approval for NDIS funded discharge. And sitting behind the team, as Noel has explained, often a much larger team of medical and nursing staff, other members of the allied health, and then they would transition out into the community as well. But the key people in this decision are the participant, their family and supports, and the hospital team. The rest of us really aren't involved at this point in time. Moving on to the next time point, once the NDIS funding has been approved or is going through that process, more members of the team start to be involved. And this is to start exploring high-level options for the participants' accommodation and care outside of the hospital setting. So I'll hand over to Alicia now just to touch on some of the members of the team that would be involved at this point.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, we see usually referrals come through at this stage in the process. It's not uncommon we receive the first referral by the hospital, usually OT team as well. If a support coordinator is already appointed by this stage, we do also see them come through from the support coordinator directly. This is the point where we can really start working together with all these parties to ensure a timely discharge and finding the most suitable option.
Great. So there's different members of our team and different pieces of information that you often request. And if you've referred to MediStays before, you will know this. So Alicia, can you just first of all walk us through your role as a care navigator and also the role of our accommodation team?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Sarah. I guess me as a care navigator, I'm the main contact for everyone involved in this stage of the process. which is hospitals, support coordinators, families. My role is to understand the full picture, so the participants' needs, but also their funding and the timeline that we're working with, as this can be quite different from referral to referral. From the participant being in hospital through to their transition out of hospital into their sometimes transitional home, sometimes it's already their forever home. That's what we're here to do, trying to reduce the stress and the complexity involved in all of that. I usually coordinate MTA, SDA and SIL, often in a single referral, and we try our very best to offer a very fast expert response to all our inquiries, as we know that they will be time sensitive. Our accommodation team then, which includes Alison and her crew, they are then sourcing, verifying properties. They're supplying our care navigator team with photos, floor plans, accessibility reports, everything that we need to make the best recommendation for the participants or individuals. We work with verified accessibility reports, which are majorly helpful for then the hospital team to review. Alison also makes sure that the property availability actually lines up with the discharge timelines that we're working with. And we often also coordinate either in-person inspections or virtual walkthroughs as well.
Great, thanks, Alicia. And I think what you can see there is that different members of the team, the participant and the family, will be involved in different information and decision making at this point. But it is still very high level before we start recommending the properties. Some of the other information that really helps you, I know, through working with the Care Navigator team, is a much bigger perspective and understanding of a participant's circumstances.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, Sarah. We make sure that everything aligns, whether that be hospital discharge timeline, but also funding and support. So it's not uncommon that we ask those